Full synthetic motor oil designed for today's engines exclusively at your O'Reilly Auto Parts store or O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it'd go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was gonna unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
Home ownership rates in the U.S. have increased across all racial and ethnic groups over the past decade, but the gap between white and black ownership has grown.
The National Association of Realtors says that gap increased from 27% in 2013 to 28% in 2023. NAR Senior Economist and Director of Real Estate Research, Nadia Evangelou.
Homeownership is one of the most powerful tools for building wealth and financial stability, but the opportunity to own a home is not the same for everybody.
The black home ownership rate was 44.7% in 2023. The white home ownership rate was 72.4%. Christopher Cruz, CBS News, Washington.
A week that morphed into 9 months in space is almost over for astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. A SpaceX capsules arrived at the ISS, delivering their replacements. They're supposed to return home tomorrow. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
I'm Sia, and I support Humane World for Animals, formerly called the Humane Society of the United States. Together, we have created a new version of Peter Gabriel's beautiful song, Salisbury Hill, to celebrate Humane World for Animals and everything they do. Enjoy the song and join us in helping Humane World for Animals end animal cruelty.
You still thinking job change in the new year?
Yeah, I need something that's in high demand and more stable in this economy.
IT?
Yeah, cybersecurity, maybe even AI.
That's what I did.
Really? How?
Went to My Computer Career. You don't need any prior experience, and you could start your new career in a matter of months. A lot of IT pros go to school there, too, to level up.
Sweet. Are classes online or on campus?
Both.
Wow, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Make this your year. Take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students.
Join me, Speedy, Adler, and Greg for the Rick Burgess Show on WGNS.
The Rick Burgess Show, weekdays 11 to 2 on News Radio WGNS. WGNS, Murfreesboro. W270AF, Murfreesboro. W263AI, Murfreesboro, Smyrna. We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450, Murfreesboro. FM 100.5, Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the WGNS Action Line.
Do you love WGNS Radio? Well, now you can watch it too. WGNS Big G TV brings your favorite radio shows live and on demand. From breaking news and community talk to Rutherford County's top local sports. We've got it all right at your fingertips. Watch anytime, anywhere. WGNS Big G TV, where radio comes to life.
Thank you.
So what all is going on at MTSU? Because I understand there's a big event coming up. What is that?
Sure. We are going to have our annual Alumni Spring Showcase. It's going to be held from April 9th through the 19th. It's when we invite alumni back to campus to participate in all the lectures, exhibits, sporting events, workshops that are going on during the spring semester. Our colleges and programs always have something going on, and many of them open up these events for alumni to come and enjoy.
So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you enjoy about being a part of MTSU?
Well, I've been in the Alumni Association's office for just a year now, but I've been at MTSU going on for 12 years. But something I love to do, I love creating the programming for alumni. I love meeting our alumni. And I have really loved putting together this spring showcase this year.
Now, to make this spring showcase happen, you've worked with, I guess, a lot of departments, right?
That's correct.
So
yes.
What all goes into this? What are some of those departments that are involved?
Sure. This year, we have the College of Behavioral and Health Sciences actually created an event just for the showcase this year. It's called, they're calling it the True Blue Zone. And it's an interactive workshop. And essentially what it is when, there's been a lot of research about there's certain people in certain geographic areas and regions in the world where they live longer and healthier lives. And the research shows that there's a lot of things that go into that. So, whether it's their diet or their mindset or having a purpose. And so it really fits what the College of Behavioral and Health Sciences does. So what they're going to do is they're going to do a short lecture, and then they're going to have this workshop where they're going to have different stations where they're going to have everything from their nutrition and dietetics, leisure studies, exercise science, their public health, where you can go around and talk to them about that. So it's a really unique event. It's something that Vicki Harden from Social Work has put together, and it's going to be really great. I can't wait to go.
Working in alumni relations, I'm sure you come across a lot of folks who graduated from MTSU in the past, and there's no telling what they're doing today with their career, but are you ever surprised at some of the careers that you do hear about?
I used to work in the College of Media and Entertainment, so I always...
that would be the coolest for alumni to come back, I would think.
That's true. It's really neat whenever you do, especially when you know kids as, when they're in school and then they go on to win a Grammy and you're just like, man, that is so neat, you know? So I've been really lucky to know a lot of really great alums.
So coming from that department, when you see some of these names up there on the stage performing, are you ever like, well, that's not really how they act in real life? I think I couldn't help but to do that if I were, from that department originally.
It is funny though. Sometimes, a lot of our students, they are so hardworking and they really know what they want to do when they get into school. So sometimes you can just tell. Yeah. You're like, man, they're gonna make it, and when they do, you're just even that much more happy for them.
That's cool. Again, with us this morning, Rachel Helms, Assistant Director for the MTSU Office of Alumni Relations. And coming up, we have a lot of family-friendly type events that are going to be held. Now, are these events all going to be on the MTSU campus, or where are they going to be, and what are they?
Sure. So most of them are on campus. The first one I'm going to talk about, though, is actually going to be at the Discovery Center. So not too far from campus, but on April 11th, we are going to have an alumni family night at the Discovery Center. It is free. It starts at 6 p.m., and we're going to have the Spaghetti Monster food truck there. It's actually owned by one of our alums. And just so you know, they do serve more than spaghetti. They've got, chicken nuggets and French fries for the kids. But you can drop by, you can eat, and you can go into the Discovery Center and you can play until about 8 p.m.
That's cool. And then there's a special Easter egg hunt coming up?
That's right. It's the annual Panhellenic Easter egg hunt that starts at 2 p.m. on Sunday. It's April the 13th. It's going to be on the big lawn there on the corner of Middle Tennessee Boulevard and Main Street. And I have taken my daughter there every year, and she's getting really good with finding those Easter eggs. So, but we always have a great time. They've also got a lot of really good games for little kids. And they always, of course, have the inflatable as well.
The famous inflatables.
Exactly.
And then for those who enjoy fossils, rocks, and things like that, what do you have?
Of course. So there's a new event that Dr. Cribb in our geosciences department came up with, and I love this idea. He is going to take people on a campus geology field trip. So all you have to do is register and meet us at the Science Building, Davis Science Building, on Good Friday. It's April 18th. Starts at 1 o'clock, and he's going to take us on a campus tour to explore the rocks and minerals that make up our academic buildings. Because he was telling me, he said, the Walker Library, the floor of the Walker Library, he goes, you notice how it has, little brown spots and stuff in it? And I said, yeah. And he goes, those are fossils. And I said, you're kidding. And he said, yeah. So it's a really neat event also to bring your, if you want to bring your kids, he said they're more than welcome.
That does sound interesting. I'm always surprised at some of the fossils that people find in Middle Tennessee. I mean, you really, who knows? I mean, the mammoth, what is it? The woolly mammoth the great big tusk and everything. People have found fossils of that here in Tennessee, like the actual tusk or the teeth. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
So also coming up, we have the career networking. What is that?
So we wanted to include alums. You know, some alums just can't get back to campus for something like this. So what we did was develop just a free webinar, and we're collaborating with MTSU's Career Development Center. And we're going to have 2 advisors from the Development Center, and they're just going to be talking about Career Networking 101. That's been something that people have really been asking for. And so that will be on April 9th, and it's going to be over your lunch hour, so it'll be at noon. So it's free as well. All you need to do is register at mtalumni.com.
Now, I know you mentioned the College of Behavioral Health and Sciences about their interactive workshop, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Because it's really interesting, some of the studies that come out of MTSU, but this one in particular about living longer and living healthier lives.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting is the locations. You know, it's not just one part of the world. It's everywhere from Okinawa, Japan, to parts of Costa Rica, to Sardinia, Italy. And so that's why it became such an interesting topic is, you know, all these places are so different, but yet these people are living well into their hundreds and they're very, very healthy. So they're going to dive into that a little more and really sort of give everybody tips on how we can all be healthier.
Hey, I wonder what they found. Is it, you know, the diet that they have? What is it?
What's interesting is I read a little bit about this, and they identified, I believe it was 9 particular things, and it was a combination of all of them is what they said. It wasn't necessarily just one thing. You know, you would think, oh, it's because they got good exercise, or because they, ate really well. But they said, no, a lot of it had to do with also having a purpose, you know, having a certain mindset. And so I can't wait to hear the lecture on it. It's going to be great.
With Costa Rica being one of the places, if you bought me a house there, I could probably live longer.
Me too.
Again, with us today, Rachel Helms with MTSU, the Assistant Director of the MTSU Office of Alumni Relations. And as we close this morning, kind of give us a recap and, again, the dates for some of these events.
Yeah, of course. So the Alumni Spring Showcase is from April 9th through the 19th. And a couple of things to remember, the family-friendly events. We have April 11th, the Family Night at the Discovery Center. On April 12th, we're going to have a Spring Weekend Kids Zone. We're going to set up in front of Reese Smith Baseball Field, and we're going to have free Kona Ice for the first 50 kids, ages 12 and under. And then, of course, we've got our field trip, the geology field trip, that's going to be on the 18th. And to register for these events, they're free. You just need to register. It's mtalumni.com.
And how many people are you planning for some of these events? Have you got any idea?
It just depends. Sometimes we have, 100 people show up. I know for the Easter egg hunt, they always have a great turnout. So we're hoping for as many people that want to come as possible. So,
again, for more information, you can go to mtalumni.com/spring showcase, and that should give you the breakdown of all the details, right?
It sure will. Absolutely.
And again, this officially starts April 9th. Is that the first day?
That's correct.
Okay, so a lot happening at MTSU and I guess through MTSU. And once more with us this morning, Rachel Helms, Assistant Director of the MTSU Office of Alumni Relations. Well, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Right now, that time, 8:28. You're tuned to WGNS. A check on that forecast and also the traffic comes your way next.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Good morning. A little bit of volume has developed here on 24 westbound, coming out of Murfreesboro into Antioch as it finally starts to build westbound. 24 as you work your way past Bell Road. It's gotten heavier on Vietnam Vets westbound on that ramp to 65. There's been radar on I-40 out in Dixon County this morning. Whether you need a new roof repair, roof inspection, independent roofing specialist, these are your guys. Check them out at irsroofs.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
We're News Radio WGNS 100.5, 101.9, 1450. Online and on your phone at wgnsradio.com.
We'll see sunny skies here for this afternoon with a high in the upper 50s. Tonight, mostly clear, low near 38. Tuesday, sunshine, high of 73 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 34.
Here at Animal City in Murfreesboro, we are your go-to for everything cold-blooded. Whether it's geckos or snakes or tortoises, we've got a great selection. Plus, we've got all the tanks, lighting, and food to set up the perfect habitat. If you're not sure where to start, don't worry. Our team knows reptiles and can help you every step of the way. Come see us at 919 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and Sunday from 1 to 5. Find us anytime.
I am Charlotte Gardner. I've lived at Adams Place for 3 years. Everything's positive about the food. There are so many choices. There is a menu that you can pick and choose whatever you want. And people who have come here for a meal with me are really impressed at the selection.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at Adams Place. Call me for more information about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111.
Adams Place on Memorial across from Walmart.
In today's changing world, you need a financial planner that you're comfortable with. Rely on the bonds that you've built with trusted friends at Old National Bank on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard here in the borough. And if you just moved here, visit us and enjoy warm, homemade cookies.
Honey, the cookies are ready.
Like Grandma used to make. Old National Bank. We're better together.
2230 Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard. Old National Bank, member FDIC.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Right now that time, 8:31, you're tuned to WGNS, and our guest during this half of the program, we have Dr. Rebecca Oldham, MTSU Human Development and Family Studies Assistant Professor. And first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me.
So the third annual Family Violence Professional Panel Series is right around the corner. And when does that start?
The first one is actually today.
Oh.
Yeah. It's covering intimate partner violence, commonly known as domestic violence, sexual assaults, and stalking. And we have 6 different panelists. It's from 2:20 p.m. in the academic classroom building. The panel has some prepared questions to start, but then the last 35 minutes, I take questions from audience members both online and in person. There is a story, an MTSU story, if people want to find the online link if they want to attend, but they're also welcome to attend in person. Around 3:45, we're going to transition to a networking session where there will be food provided. People can talk to our panelists. So, like I said, the first one is today, March 17th, 2:20 p.m. in the Academic Classroom Building 106. And for the next 2 Mondays, we have more panelists. Each panel has about 6 people, professionals from across Tennessee who work in these different fields. The one next Monday at the same time is child abuse. And then on the 31st of March, also a Monday, same time, is elder abuse. So we're super excited to have these professionals. I call them the boots on the ground. They do this really important work, and they're kind enough to take time out of their schedules to talk to our students, staff, faculty, and people in the community what they need to know about how to prevent these different types of family violence and abuse, and how they can identify and intervene when they do suspect that they're happening.
And this is the third annual panel series that you've had here, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So how big of a problem is domestic violence as a whole?
It is a lot more common. All 3 of these kinds of violence are a lot more common than we realize. Every semester I teach this class, and every year I have at least a few students who've experienced one or more of these types of abuse. If you were to ask a room full of people if they have a close friend or family member that they know who've experienced one or more of these, almost everybody in the room is going to raise their hand. Again, we're talking about also including sexual assault and stalking, really common. So these things happen all the time. And the impacts of them may not just be physical. They may be lifelong psychological or emotional trauma that can be really, really difficult to solve. So not only are they important in terms of statistics, they're also important in terms of the impact they have on victims.
With things like stalking, it seems like social media today has almost made it way too easy for those who are potential stalkers, which doesn't seem like a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. People do need to be careful about what kinds of information they're putting out on social media. Something that you can see a lot of, especially on Facebook, are these questionnaires. They're supposed to be fun, right? And they'll say things like, what's your mom's name? Or what's your favorite color? Or what's your favorite food? And these are common security questions that people use for their accounts to protect their accounts. But now you're putting it out there on the public domain, and people can use that information to get into your account. So people need to be careful, not just what information that they're putting out there on purpose, but it's always a good idea to Google yourself and see what kinds of information have been shared online that you may not be aware of, and ask to get that kind of information taken down.
Now, I know you said you've had students, and it seems like you always do have students, you said, every year who said, hey, I've been a victim of this. But have you ever had students come to you and say, this is happening to me right now?
Yeah, that has happened almost every semester that I teach the course. I either have a student who say, this is happening to me, this is happening to a friend, what can I do? And so I'm usually directing those students to the professionals who are going to be on these panels. I'm saying, you need to go to talk to people at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center. You need to go talk to the Child Advocacy Center. You need to report this using the hotline numbers that are available to the public. The professionals that I'm referring them to have all kinds of resources, services available, things like legal services, things like counseling, maybe financial resources that can help them learn how to get out of these kinds of situations and find the professional help that they need.
And when you talk to these students and they say, I'm going through this, I've been through this, what is the number one answer, if you were to ask, why haven't you done anything about this? Why haven't you reported this? And I'm sure you don't ask it like that, but in those cases, what would that answer be?
A lot of people just don't have the information they need. They don't know what kinds of services are available in the community, which is why these panels can be really important, is it gives an opportunity for our community partners to make public knowledge the kinds of services that they provide, the different reporting resources that are available through nonprofit or government agencies. And so a lot of students, a lot of people don't know about the services that are available for free in our community. It's important that people know about that. They also need to know also about how to prevent these kinds of things. One activity that I do with my students every year is called In Her Shoes. It's led by Myra Beasley from the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center. And we learn a lot about why it's so hard for domestic violence victims to leave. It could be economic resources. It could be personal resources. Sometimes people say things like, oh, I didn't report this sexual assault because it was a personal matter. It wasn't. Or they may not even think of themselves as somebody who's been a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault until they learn a little bit more about what these things really look like in practice. Sometimes we have this image of like, this is what domestic violence looks like. This is what sexual assault looks like. This is what child abuse looks like. And if mine's not severe enough, if it's not the right kind of person, it's very hard for us to think of ourselves as someone who has been victimized by these kinds of things until we learn, oh, what I'm experiencing is actually very characteristic of these kinds of violence. And now I need to think about what I can do to help myself or to help my friend.
When people do come to you and they do say, this is me, I fit this mold, it happened to me, and they say, I waited too long to do anything about it. Are they ever surprised, or do you ever say, well, actually, no, the statute of limitations, you're still good. You can report this?
I don't know that I've had conversations so much about statutes of limitations. That's the kind of thing that I would refer them. I pretty quickly refer them out to the professionals who deal with this kind of thing every day, because I know that they know more about the legal details, the legal ins and outs of what resources they have available to them, what kinds of, whether they're in the statute of limitations. So I'm pretty quickly referring them out to the people who know a lot more about them and are better prepared to strategically help them than I am.
Again, Dr. Rebecca Oldham with us today, MTSU Human Development and Family Studies Assistant Professor. Now, again, the first panel, that's going to be today, the first panel discussion today, and that's going to focus on intimate partner violence and then stalking and sexual assault, right?
Right. A lot of these adult relationship kind of violence.
And then what's the next one coming up? Is it next Monday?
Next Monday, that one's about child abuse.
And then the one after that is the elder abuse, right?
That's right. Okay. On Monday. And I especially encourage people to attend elder abuse because it's so not understood well by the public.
You know, it seems like over the past couple of years, we've seen more elder abuse cases kind of come to light where before, we hardly ever saw that. But now it seems like there's at least more being reported on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't tell you why it's being reported more, but I am glad to hear it because elder abuse in particular is one that is not reported very often. All of these kinds of violence are mostly perpetrated by people we're close to, people we trust, people we know, family members, friends, coaches, religious leaders, people that have our trust, that have intimate spaces, people we don't want to report, right? Especially with elder abuse, right? It's children, it's family members. It might be a caregiver in an assisted living facility, but usually it's somebody they're related to or a friend. So it often doesn't want to go reported because they don't want to get the abuser in trouble, right?
So what led you down this path to do research on this, to teach on this, all of it together? What led you down this path?
Well, I am a romantic relationships researcher. So most of my research is focused on how relationships develop in a normal setting, in a healthy setting. How can we make our relationships better? But there is another side of that, right? There is another side of what does an unhealthy relationship look like? What does a dangerous relationship look like? I went to graduate school when the Me Too movement was happening. There was a lot of conversations about sexual assault. And so I was learning a lot about that at the time. And so when I came here to MTSU, I began teaching, I still teach a dating and mating class, which is available as a gen ed starting next year. But I teach the family violence course and I have for 5 years, which includes not just my research expertise about adult relationships, but also includes those topics of child abuse and elder abuse.
Are more people involved in dangerous type relationships today versus, let's say, 10, 20 years ago?
That's a good question. I think that there have been a lot of societal changes that have made awareness of these topics and some of the power imbalances that exist that are fundamental to this kind of abuse happening has lessened some of those power imbalances, both if you're talking about gendered relationships as adults, but also parent-child relationships. We tend to value children more than we did 100 years ago, right? So things like child abuse are much more frowned upon culturally. And when you change the culture around what's acceptable in relationships, not only are people more likely to be punished, but they're less likely to want to engage in those kinds of behaviors. So the culture that we establish matters quite a bit. So I would expect there's a lot less of these kinds of violence happening, especially if you compare it to like 50, 60, 100 years ago.
Isn't it weird how it's almost like to some extent we value life more so today than we did 20 or 30 years ago? Because if you read back about some past cases, little was often done when it involved a teenager or a child, right, versus what's done today if somebody is caught doing something illegal involving any type of domestic violence or assault, right, against a child or a teen.
Right. There's definitely more legal. We had the Violence Against Women Act that was passed in 1994, right? So that fundamentally changed not just the law, but also how we as a public saw these issues. There's been a lot of social movements that have drawn a lot of attention to these things in the past 60 to 70 years. So that has certainly changed our cultures around it. I think we know that there's a powerful myth in our culture that violence is getting worse, and when we know that violence statistics have actually gone down over history. And so just because people are reporting things more, it's because they're identifying it as a problem and because there's something that can be done about it, which indicates that there is a cultural shift that says this is not acceptable. There are laws in place that deter this kind of behavior, and now there are resources there that you can access, but you have to report it.
When you look at things like stalking, and I know in the beginning I said it seems like social media has made it easier than ever for somebody to stalk another person. But what do you see today with stalking? Or what are some of those cases? What do they look like today?
Yeah, there have been changes because of technology. So like you mentioned, social media is one of the kinds of information that are very easily accessible out there. So check your privacy settings, check what kind of information. Don't share things that you don't need to share, especially if you think about the amount of information we put about our children online. Think very carefully about what you're sharing about your children. But there's also things like AirTags or other smart home devices that can make intimate partner violence or stalking much more insidious. So if you have an AirTag, it's very easy to take an AirTag and like stick it between the wedges of a seat in a car, or to tag it underneath somebody's car where they're never going to look for it. They're not going to find it. It may not be an AirTag. It may be some other like tracking device. We also share our location a lot with people, with companies. That kind of information can be used to stalk people, and there's things like our smart home devices, which if you've ever been living with somebody and then they have access to a lot of your passwords, a lot of your devices, we've seen people harass their former partners that they've moved out of living with them by turning the heat up in the middle of the night, by ringing the doorbell constantly, by unlocking the doors, things like that. So stalking and domestic violence has changed quite a bit with different smart home technology.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And when you look at things like the AirTags that you can put on a car or in a car to track somebody's location, I would imagine that maybe back in the 90s or so, in order to find some type of tracking device, you had to go to some specialty spyware store or something. Right. But today, you can literally buy them just with a click of a button online.
Right. They're widely available, and I know that places like companies like Apple have been looking into how their technology is being used. But as is typical with technology, it changes so fast. It's very difficult for both companies and laws to keep up with technology as it changes.
It's almost as if everything is too easy, and it's geared towards the stalker or the person who hurts another person in some way. But it's almost too easy today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I know that there was a story a few years ago with MTSU, where the MTSU police caught a stalker on campus, and they were using tracking devices to follow a student. So it's important that we pay attention to these kinds of things, that we ask our family and friends for support. All these kinds of abuse happen in isolation. So the more we can recruit our social networks to tell them, like, hey, this person is following me, this person is giving me unwanted attention, don't give them access to my information. If you see them, tell them to leave. Going to places like the Domestic Violence Center and asking for things like an order of protection. That way, if they are following you and they're caught, now that there's some legal recourse, now it's a crime. It's not just a civil issue, it's a crime because they violated an order of protection. So if somebody is stalking you, there's also a great resource online called Spark, SPARC. And they have logs that you can use in both Spanish and English for college students and non-college students to record a log of the unwanted contact or them following you, so that you can give that kind of record to police, take pictures of the messages they send you, don't respond to them, but just keep a log of everything that's happening so that you have evidence for your case.
And if anybody would like to learn more information or to learn about one of these panels, the guest speakers and everything, what do they need to do? Can they just search online MTSU?
Yeah.
What?
There's an MTSU news article out there that has information about the panels, when they happen. You can RSVP if you like, if you need special accommodations. We're going to have an American Sign Language interpreter that we're going to have in person, and I'm going to try and post the video online. You can find my contact information, and you can find a link to attend them virtually if you'd like.
Sounds good. Again, Dr. Rebecca Oldham with us this morning, MTSU Human Development and Family Studies Assistant Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Right now, that time, 8:47. Stay with us. We do have more news and information coming your way next.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
At Tractor Supply, we know that a winning season out here takes practice, teamwork, and a can-do attitude. Thankfully, when it comes to teamwork, it's great to have a neighbor like Tractor Supply. No matter the season, our team members are here to help. Like you, they know that nothing beats the feeling of seeing all your hard work pay off. Whether you're caring for pets, chickens, or a few acres, we have everything you need to get the most out of life out here. Season after season, Tractor Supply. For life out here.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother got life insurance from Ethos, and it only took 10 minutes. And he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit ethos.com/now. That's ethos.com/now.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Right now that time, 8:48. With us now in studio from MTSU, we have Dr. Mary Evans, and she is a research professor of history in the MTSU Honors College. How are you this morning?
I'm very fine, thank you. Top of the morning to you.
That's right, it's St. Patrick's Day.
It's St. Patrick's Day.
So what got you involved in this area? Because you are involved in a lot of stuff at MTSU, but what got you focused on everything that you do?
Well, I'll talk about specifically the program that's coming up this week, which is why I'm here being able to share with the folks in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County and around about. I teach U.S. history, and I teach specifically women's history, and I am also the director of MTSU's American Democracy Project, which is about our student voting. So all of those actually come together this month during National Women's History Month. This Wednesday at MTSU, at the University Honors College at 2:30 in the afternoon, we are having a sit-down and discussion with a woman who is a documentary film producer, and her name is Christy Carpenter. And the reason why we brought Christy Carpenter to our campus this week, and we invite all of you to come and participate with us, is because she is the daughter of just an incredible role model woman in the middle part of the 20th century whose name was Mrs. Liz Carpenter. I don't know if that's a name that rings a bell with any of you, but you should have heard of her at some point along the time, because she was perhaps her most nationally visible role at one period of time is that she was the press secretary for First Lady Bird Johnson during the Lyndon Baines Johnson presidential administration. And Mrs. Liz Carpenter came to that position because she was a Texan, as were the Johnsons, and she was a journalist, and she had been a journalist in Washington, D.C. for a good long time. She had worked with previously Senator Lyndon Johnson and all of the Texas delegation, getting the information about what was going on in Washington back home to her home state of Texas about congressional and senatorial and presidential activities during the 1950s and the early part of the 1960s. She was a journalism major at the University of Texas in Austin right before World War II and during World War II, and she graduated from UT Austin during the war and made her way to Washington, D.C., which was a hotbed for men journalists. And in those days, to be a woman journalist, you would probably get assigned to the society pages. But she had a heart and a mind and a fervor for politics, and she was quite a powerhouse. She was comic, she was hysterical, she was forceful, she was interesting, and she soon became well known as a young woman journalist to the Texas congressional delegation in D.C., and they knew that through her writing and her voice that they could get their message back to their constituency back home in Texas. So why are we here in Tennessee interested in this person? Well, let me tell you, it's a great Tennessee story. My granddaddy was a judge in rural Middle Tennessee, and he told me in his lifetime, in the early part of the 20th century, they used to write GTT, which stood for Gone to Texas, in the law books when someone would not show up for their sentencing. And I have yet to see these law books. If anybody knows about them with GTT written in them, I sure would like you to get in touch with me at the Department of History at MTSU and let me know. But everybody knows about the founder of Nashville, who was General James Robertson. And Christy Carpenter and her mother, Mrs. Liz Carpenter, are descendants of that esteemed early Tennessee founding family, the Robertsons. And some of them, of course, stayed here and settled here and lived forever. But her particular family stayed for a couple of generations and then moved on to Texas and became one of the first families of Texas as well. So we have a strong Tennessee connection, and the Tennessee State Library has a strong Robertson collection there. They've just acquired a new quilt, apparently made by Mrs. Charlotte Robertson. We're looking forward to seeing that this week when Christy's here from Texas to look up her Tennessee roots. But we're having her on campus because we want to talk about her mother and this incredible film, which is titled Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter. And not only did Mrs. Carpenter serve in the LBJ administration, she went on to become an incredible and powerful feminist who was working for the Equal Rights Amendment for all women. And she was one of the key organizers in 1977 of the National Women's Convention that was held in Houston, Texas. And she's from that really powerful thread of women who really were leaders and voices for change in our society. So we're looking forward to everybody getting to know who Liz Carpenter was, because she's a role model for us today. And let me just tell you that Nashville PBS will be showing the film Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter, starting in May. And for those of you who are members of PBS and you are on PBS Passport, you can access the documentary there very shortly. But right now, just for the next 2 weeks, and 2 weeks only, I understand, through PBS, I think I'm correct-ish about that, you can go into pbs.org and watch Shaking It Up on your own time, on your own screen. It's going to be fully accessible without Passport and without even having to have a television. So we're inviting you to do that now. Please go watch the film because it's publicly available at no charge to anyone. It's on pbs.org. It's called Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter. And you can also see some longer screenings, what's referred to as the director's cut, a little bit in greater detail. This week, in fact, today, Monday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day to you, at 12:30 at the Honors College in room 106 at MTSU, and tomorrow, March 18th, Tuesday the 18th, at 1 o'clock in room 106 of the University Honors College at MTSU. So again, we're having 2 on-campus showings of the director's cut of the documentary. Today, the 17th of March at 12:30, and tomorrow, March 18th at 1 o'clock. And then the big event is on Wednesday. And that's when we would really love for you to come to campus and join us. Again, we're going to host this event, this dialogue, in the Honors College auditorium. And the Honors College is near the Student Union building in East Campus. And it's in room 106 on the first floor. It's the Honors Auditorium. And Ms. Christy Carpenter, along with a Nashville PBS Director of Strategy and Operations, Dr. Sarah Childress, who handles all of Nashville PBS's independent production work, meaning independent films such as the one that we're going to be watching and talking about. She will be doing the moderating. And we're going to have a reception afterwards for people who are interested in the political progress, the writing progress, the voice, and the visibility of women in U.S. society. And this is an illustrious Tennessee heritage woman from Texas who played a huge part in the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration in the 1960s, in the era that we refer to as the Second Reconstruction, also the Great Society. So come be a part of that and join the dialogue with us, and stick around for the reception. You can meet Christy and visit and talk, and we love to hear your perspectives and ask her lots of questions.
So during that discussion on Wednesday, what types of questions, or have you received any questions yet, but what types of questions do you expect?
Well, the story itself covers several pieces. Liz Carpenter's story is a journalism story, women in journalism. It's a political story about women in politics and the shaping of politics and the roles women played at that point in the early to mid to upper 20th century. And then it shifts into an empowerment feminist story. So from Mrs. Liz Carpenter's perspective, there are all those elements. But for us here in Tennessee, it's also a Tennessee heritage story. There's a lot we could talk about there. There's a Texas story and sort of Washington, D.C. life. So a great deal of those elements, I think, will be bases from which people can pose questions. I hope people will speak to Dr. Childress from Nashville PBS and ask her the film questions, but I'm going to be interested in the history questions, of course.
But a lot of history for sure for those who enjoy learning, or for those who have questions regarding history. A lot can be answered at this event.
Yeah, it's really, I'm excited about it, and I think it's a real opportunity. We often talk about unsung heroes or heroines, people whom we don't know. And to be perfectly honest, the entire thread of women's history, both in the United States and globally, is often people have been previously unsung. It takes historians and moments such as documentaries and biographies to tease out those stories so that we become aware of them. We know what incredible work these people did, and often they were behind the scenes. Too often women are not in the front of our national activities. We remember U.S. history often as a long line of male U.S. presidents. Where were the women? What were the women doing during any of it? We go from war to war, and we often don't look at the social issues that were bubbling back on the home front. These are areas where women shaped U.S. policy and had an enormous role in what was happening in the nation. So Women's History Month is just a time to be able to have those discussions and bring that home to us and get us all a little bit better educated.
And we are already out of time, but if you'd like to learn more, just go to mtsunews.com/ and then type in Shaking Up Liz Carpenter Women's History. But again, all of this going on the MTSU campus. And once more with us today, Dr. Mary Evans. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Right now, that time, we're 20 seconds away from the 9 o'clock hour. Coming up next to look at news both nationally and locally.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, flagship station for MTSU Sports. Courthouse clock time, 9 o'clock. Now an update from the wgnsradio.com News Center.
4 people were rescued from a flooded vehicle in Rutherford County following Saturday's severe weather that swept through Middle Tennessee. Murfreesboro Fire Rescue Department reported that crews were dispatched to Shalom Street after a vehicle became trapped in a flooded waterway. While the exact time of the incident was not specified, emergency responders successfully rescued all 4 occupants without any reported injuries. The severe weather system brought heavy rain, strong winds, and dangerous road conditions across the region. Authorities continue to urge drivers to avoid flooded roads and to heed weather warnings to prevent similar incidents in the future. Meteorologists have warned that heavy rains in the coming weeks could further saturate the ground, increasing the risk of flooding in low-lying areas. Emergency officials emphasize the importance of staying alert and having an evacuation plan in place in case of severe weather threats. Meanwhile, Rutherford County Fire and Rescue, as well as the Rutherford County Fire Marshal's Office, are issuing warnings about the risk of open burning after a fire on Halls Hill Pike. Crews responded to a home Friday evening where an unattended fire pit, combined with strong winds, caused flames to spread to a nearby hot tub and surrounding vegetation. Officials released video footage capturing the moment that the fire escalated, emphasizing the dangers of leaving outdoor fires unsupervised. The Fire Marshal's Office is reminding residents to take precautions when burning outdoors, noting that multiple house fires this year have already been linked to open burning. With unpredictable weather conditions and elevated winds, officials stress the importance of monitoring